When a new journey begins, Patty, that means most likely an old journey is ending. And that's what's happening with us. And I thought maybe today was a good day to say goodbye in this episode of Travels with Delaney,
the podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back. My name's Patrick.
I'm Patty.
And currently we are not joined by Truman and Bess, our Cavalier King Charles Spaniels. They are in the middle of brushing their teeth with their...
Because they brush their teeth after they eat their dinner.
Yeah.
And they know their routine.
They do.
But Sissy will drive you crazy until you get her toothbrush.
That's right.
Which is a greenie wannabe.
My guess is Truman will be joining us very shortly.
Oh, yeah, he loves the podcast couch.
Yes, he does. And Patty, today, I believe this is episode 97.
Yeah.
This will be our final episode.
In the cabin.
On the podcast sofa.
That's right.
Both the cabin and the podcast sofa are now owned by somebody else.
Yep.
And by the time this episode is airing, we will no longer be inhabiting the cabin.
Or as our friend Jonathan says, we're squatters right now.
Right now, he says we are squatters, and he said we might have more rights than when we actually had a mortgage on this place, which is kind of crazy. So
that's funny.
Yeah, that is funny. So,
oh my gosh.
So yeah, if we freaked anybody out in the beginning by saying we're going to say goodbye, we're not saying goodbye from the podcast.
No.
But we are going to be saying goodbye to this home.
Yep.
And we just thought, you know what? Let's take a little trip down memory lane today. Yeah. That kind of lane.
Like the corner of my mind.
All right.
Barbara.
Wow. This episode's starting off as a doozy already.
That's what happens when you're with 10-year-olds all day. You get a little cuckoo.
Yeah, Patty's on a little bit of a high right now. So
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
it'll soon crash. Yeah.
I sent her a text this afternoon, a Facebook post, and it was a job opening.
Yeah.
And I said, do you think you'll apply? It's actually her job.
It's my job.
They've already posted it for next school year, so that's got to make you feel good.
They're like,
they didn't even wait.
Out.
They didn't even wait a week for it, did they? They just like.
Get me out.
That's what I've always said about employers. You kill yourself for them.
Yes, you do.
You know, and you think like, but they'll appreciate it, and they really don't. I mean, they're kind of like, hey, we got a spot to fill, and
and probably with me, they're like, hey, she was on the top of the pay scale. Out she goes.
That's right. You're going to save them money.
I am.
You know, I'm sure your boss is like, big whoop.
Big What's whoop. That again?
Big whoop.
Big whoop. If you know Ted Lasso, you know what we're talking about.
Anyway, well, Patty, let's go ahead and get this show rolling with another exciting round of This or That. You know, Jim's got music for that. So, all right, Patty, we're setting at a stoplight.
Yep.
We're on vacation.
Okay.
Setting at a stoplight. You have a choice.
Ooh.
On one side of the road, you have Starbucks.
Yes.
But on the other side of the road, you have Dutch Brothers.
Ooh.
Where are we grabbing a beverage?
Ooh. I love them both. And if you don't know, Dutch Bros, they're out on the West Coast mostly.
They started out on the West Coast.
There's some in Tennessee, though, at Pigeon Forge,
There
right?
is one. They did open one, yeah. There's also in Florida now, and they're in Texas.
Oh, so. Okay.
Wow. So this scenario could be real.
It could be reality.
Yeah.
You know I love my Starbucks.
I do, yeah.
That is like my fave. And there are Dutch Bros. I like Dutch Bros, too, because they have some fun beverages. I'm going with my old faithful Starbucks.
Starbucks for
the win.
See, I thought since I said we're on vacation and we never get Dutch Bros, you'd probably say, "Well, I can get Starbucks anywhere." But Dutch Bros, you haven't had a Dutch Bros.
I haven't since
summer. We stopped at the one in Pigeon Forge. So. All right.
Well, sorry.
Wah, wah, wah.
I just love my Starbucks.
I guess. Boy, you ought to buy.
My mango dragon fruit made with water.
You should own stock in Starbucks.
I should.
Little known fact, we actually did own Starbucks stock years ago.
Yeah.
Like probably back around 2000, 2001. I had bought some Starbucks stock.
Stop, Robbie.
And I held on to it for like a year, and then I ended up selling. I kind of wished I would have kept it because I'm sure that stock has done very well over the years. So.
Yep.
One of many stocks I sold that I shouldn't have. So.
Yep.
All right, Patty, something new this week.
Yes.
We have comments. Now, we're always asking people for comments on the audio side, and we don't get a lot.
Okay.
I think, again, because if you're listening to us in your car, you got to remember when you get to work or home or wherever to log into your podcast platform.
Yeah, I would forget.
but we actually get probably 3 times the number of views or listens, whatever you want to call it, on
Right.
our YouTube channel.
Okay.
And we get a lot of comments there. And I
Okay.
thought I'm going to start
All right.
picking out 2 or 3 comments every week
Okay.
from the YouTube version of the podcast and read them.
Okay.
So and again, please, if I didn't pick yours, it's just I went through and kind of picked out 3 random ones. And,
Okay.
so the first one comes from our good friend Wayne Kern. He says, okay, guys, a question and 2 statements.
Okay.
The question was, what are your feelings about a bedroom, since in most true tiny homes I've seen videos of, the bedroom is a loft you can't stand up in?
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah.
We want a bedroom that we don't have to be in a loft. We want to
Yeah.
be able to walk like we do now in our fifth wheel, walk around 3 sides,
Yep.
We want a nice true bedroom.
Yeah, and I think we kind of talked about that in the last episode, that for us, that's a deal breaker. We're not going to have a loft bedroom. Even if you could stand up in it, I don't think we would do it.
I don't think I want that.
I don't want to do stairs anymore.
No, I think even the other day I'm thinking I'm going to be looking forward to not doing all these stairs in the cabin. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. And then here's Wayne's 2 statements. Number 1, no quitting YouTube, you two. I've been with you guys for 7 years now. Thanks, Wayne. And that's the thing. When I saw Wayne's name, I was like, I know Wayne. And we appreciate that. It's hard to believe you've been with us 7 years.
I know.
And the only reason I say that is I can't believe we've been on YouTube.
I know.
We'll actually celebrate our 8th Tuba-versary.
Tuba-versary?
Tuba-versary.
Did you make that up?
June. No, I hear people use that term.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
hip.
No, that made you old by saying hip.
By saying hip. June, I think it's 27th.
I think
will be
you're
8
right.
years on YouTube. And the second statement was, no matter how much it's like your trailer, I don't recommend 12 trailers and 12 tiny homes in 17
Oh,
years.
isn't he funny?
And he gave us the laughing emoji. So that's a great one. Thank you. The next one comes from the Carries 563. And they wrote, Patrick, I just wanted to thank you for your in-depth recommendations on 2 products that have been very reliable and helpful on our 28 RV trips and over 20,000 miles. Just the other day, our Hughes Auto Transformer detected another miswired power pedestal. Fantastic to be protected from a devastating impact. Also, our Anderson chain distribution hitch has been easy to work with, and we've never had a problem with sway. Your reviews gave me confidence to order these products, and they have never failed us. Safe travels. So thank you very much for that. That's why I don't review a lot of products, because I only review things that I have had good success with, that I really like, and that I think are good quality. Sometimes people will leave comments and say, well, this stuff's really expensive. And I won't lie. Most of the stuff that I do review tends to be a little higher price because of the quality, But, yeah. And then the final comment this week comes from our friend Vinny. Vinny Mozzarella. And this really is for you, Patty.
Okay.
On the rental topic.
Yep.
If you're going to rent anything, house, RV, etc., you have to treat it like a business. Having an emotional attachment to the property will drive you up the wall if something gets damaged.
Oh.
So
thanks, Vinny.
I actually left Vinny a comment and said, you need to talk to Patty about this. So
I get emotional attachment because it's my money.
Yeah. I know, but he's right. If you were going to have like a rental home or a rental RV or whatever, you'd have to treat it like it's an asset. It's going to have damage. We're going to have to put money back into the business. Kind of like our eBay business where we have returns periodically. We end up losing some money on it. It's just part of doing business. So, not saying we need to rent anything that we own, but I think Vinny makes a very good point there. The last thing I did want to mention is not on the podcast channel, but over on Travels with Delaney. I just wanted to say, and I don't know if beautiful Callie 2125 listens to the podcast, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for I think they're called super thanks.
Not a super chat.
No, it's not a super chat. That's during live streams. But there is a feature where people can leave a dollar amount as a thank you if they find a video useful. And she left us a $15 super thanks. And never necessary, anyone, please. We're not asking for money.
Well, that's sweet.
But I did want to say thank you for that. Well, Patty, I guess we ought to get into today's topic as we're already about 10 minutes into this podcast. And that is, I thought we would take a trip down memory lane and kind of reminisce one last time about Tall Pine Lodge, our home that we are moving out of.
Yep.
And so Let's just start with a little history for those
Okay.
that maybe don't know.
History lesson?
A history lesson.
All right.
So our prior home was a home that we had built,
Right.
and I think we lived there for about 6 years, 5 or
Mhm.
6 years, I don't remember.
Mhm.
And the way we ended up finding Tall Pine Lodge was it was Thanksgiving. We were over at my sister's house,
Right.
sitting around, after dinner.
Right.
And I was talking with my uncles, including my uncle Dan, who was a realtor at the time.
Yep.
And I think we were just talking about housing prices. And I said, I wonder what ours would be worth. And he said, well, where would you go, or what would you want if you sold your house?
Right.
And I jokingly said, I'd like a log cabin in the woods.
Yeah.
Thinking, like that's
Gonna go,
not a
"Yeah,
possibility.
right, yeah."
And he goes, hey, I actually know where there's one for sale, I think.
You're like, where?
Well, I think my response was, yeah, Tennessee. And he goes,
Yeah.
no, seriously, there's one just a few miles
Like
from
a
here.
couple miles from here.
And
We're like, what?
and that was on a Thursday night.
Right.
And we came over here that Sunday and toured it. And our first impression when we walked in here,
This is awesome.
yeah,
This is what we want. I remember driving up the driveway going, because I'd seen pictures online, but it didn't do it justice. And when we came up the driveway, I'm like, this is so cool.
yeah.
And we walked in, we're like, holy cow.
I mean, I think we both just kind of stared at each other,
Uh-huh.
smiling, like we knew at that moment this was going to be our
this
house.
was it. It was so cool. And that day, one of the owners was still here, and which was fine.
Yeah, Mike was here.
Doing
and
some things, and which is actually good because if you had questions. But then I remember,
Isn't it ironic? So we came to look at it,
Uh-huh.
and Mike, the prior owner, was here,
Yep.
and Maddie, who is buying or has bought the
Came
house,
with you
and,
here.
and with me here,
Uh-huh.
just kind of interesting,
That
like
is interesting.
coincidental. I don't
hadn't
know,
thought of
but
that.
yeah,
And I remember then, because your uncle's doing his job, your little
Right.
job, he's like, now, do we need to make another appointment, kids? He always called us kids.
Yeah.
Afterwards, when we were at your sister's talking about it, and
we were both
I was
like,
no.
no, we want to put an offer
we
in.
want to put an offer. He's like,
And he's like, but
"Okay."
most people go back a second time. We're like, we don't need
we
to.
don't
We
need
know.
to.
And so he's like, well, I don't have any paperwork. This was on Sunday night.
Uh-huh.
He said, I'll come down on Monday and to your house. And so he did, and we put in an offer.
Yep.
And on Tuesday, Mike and Brenda counter-offered,
Right.
and we said, we'll take it. And it was contingent upon us selling our house in Auburn.
Right.
And so, yeah, and ultimately ours sold, and we took possession around Valentine's
Yes,
Day.
we did. Yeah.
Of
And man, it was
2016.
so cold when we moved in.
I know.
It was so frigid.
I think it was probably the coldest day that year.
to move anywhere.
And, and the driveway was slippery. I remember because we did hire movers.
Yes, and they did a great job.
They did a great job, but I just remember, they had to be so careful coming down the ramp, kept icing over on
Right.
the moving truck and bringing stuff in. And do you remember the first meal we had in here?
It was pizza.
It was pizza that night. It was because we moved in on a Saturday.
Right.
And my uncle, who was the realtor, showed up with pizza because he says, hey, I know that.
And some soda, yeah.
Yeah, he said, I know that you guys, moving in. And
Probably won't have anything yet.
yeah, and so we all sat here. My dad was here.
Yeah.
And, that was
Remember, I sat over there on that step. There's like a little landing.
Yeah.
And some of us sat on, because we didn't have any furniture in here yet.
No.
And
Well, we had the furniture in here,
Oh,
but probably not enough.
not
at the
enough
time.
for everybody, but
And,
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then night 2.
We did hot dogs over the campfire.
Over the open fire in
Uh-huh.
the fireplace,
Uh-huh.
yeah. In fact, I think that just popped up on your Facebook
I
feed,
think so,
wasn't it?
yeah,
Like
'cause
a
it was
week ago or
recent.
2
I'm like,
weeks?
look at this, because I had forgotten. I'm like, do you remember what we did? And he's like, yeah, I think we did hot dogs over the fire. And I said, that's right.
Yeah.
Because you made a fire. We got out our cookers and cooked some hot dogs. So it was good times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then about 4 days later, you had come home from work.
Yeah, I don't remember this, but I said, hey, let's take.
We had had dinner.
Yep.
I remember we'd finished up dinner, and you said, let's take Delaney for a walk.
And it was a beautiful sunny winter day here, and the snow outside was just gorgeous. It always is here when there's
Yep.
snow on the ground. And I'm like, let's take a little walk, Delaney, for a walk. And we have trails here. And I remember you're like, do you want to go on the trails or do you want to take the road? And I said, well, because a year prior, I had broken my leg, and I had finally been all good for a long time now.
And
I'm
you were concerned that,
about falling on.
like, underneath the snow, if there was like limbs down
Yep.
and you couldn't see them, you might twist an ankle. So
Yep.
we went down the driveway
And I slipped on the ice.
and shattered your knee again.
Yep.
Yeah. In fact, I remember I brought the car down,
You had to 'cause
loaded
I
you
couldn't
up,
get up.
brought you in, and
You're like, I'm not taking you to the emergency room.
no, I said, can you make it through the night because you still had pain
I had
pills
the,
from the year
leg
before.
wrap. I had some
So we
pain
immobilized your
meds,
leg.
and I had everything.
We slept down here on the
Mhm.
couch that night,
Yep.
and then the next day we called your ortho doctor,
Yeah,
and they said, come on down.
Dr. Connor.
And if I remember right, Dr. Connor was not there.
No.
We saw somebody else.
Yep.
And I remember saying to the doctor, I hope I didn't screw up, but I didn't take her to the ER last night. I said, but here's what I did. I got the brace out. We kept the leg up. I gave her painkillers because we had leftovers from the year before. And I remember he said, well, yeah, you did exactly what the ER would have done because they would have said you had to come here. And, yeah. And so.
And then when I did see Dr. Connor, he looked at me and he goes, are you trying to put my daughter through college?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
He was trying to make me smile because I wasn't happy because that was like 2 years in a row.
Right.
To have to teach in a wheelchair is
So we
not
went
fun.
from this super high of moving
Yes,
in
to that.
and
Oh my gosh, 6 weeks, you can't move it.
and naturally this house, when you go into the garage in this house, you have to go down
it's so
a
hard.
step,
And they're
two
kinda
steps, and
steep. They're
yeah.
kind of like big steps.
And
I
it's
mean.
like because our old house was, well, the bedroom and everything was upstairs, but
But when you were down, you could
yeah,
just.
you're right out to the garage,
Yeah.
and so, but yeah, so that was
Ah.
early on.
Yeah.
We also owned a fifth wheel when we moved in here.
Yes.
Parked on a seasonal lot. It'd been up there for about 8
About
years.
20 minutes
20
away.
minutes from here, and so
Sold.
I guess we kept it that first
Right,
summer.
we did.
And then that winter, we decided we were not going to be seasonal anymore because it didn't make sense
No.
to be seasonal 20 minutes away.
Right.
And so we traded in the fifth wheel on the vintage Cruiser.
Yeah.
Which,
that no one knows about probably.
Right, because that was before. We did not start our YouTube channel when we moved in. Our YouTube channel did not start until like a year and a half later in June of 17.
Mhm.
And so a lot of people didn't see. Well, nobody saw because we weren't making
Right.
videos that first year and a
Yep.
half here at Tall
Mhm.
Pine Lodge.
Mhm.
So
It was
yeah,
cute,
so
but
that
it
had to be
leaked.
one of your least favorite moments.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That was not fun.
What about one of your favorite moments over the last 9 years?
Favorite moments? Oh, just the first snowfalls here are always awesome. The beauty of the woods. Because I always say winter is really the best season here at the cabin, I think. And fall would be second.
Right.
But it's just so pretty here. The moments of seeing the deer and the bucks outside. Because sometimes you see multitudes, like 4 or 5 of them.
Right.
But that's always cool to see the first snowfall. That's always, and Christmas here is beautiful.
I was gonna say Christmas is probably one thing that I'm really gonna miss. There's something magical in this house at Christmas when you get the greenery and the white lights up, and
It's just beautiful here.
Yeah.
Yeah. The house is beautiful anyway, but it's really magical.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it truly is.
Uh-huh.
And so, and I mean I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but I would say if I was to pick my worst moment here, it was when we lost my sister. And and I think,
Right.
and I know you'd say, well, what does that have to do with your house? But it was the house where everything went down, and so I just have certain memories in this
Well, and
house.
Delaney
And Delaney, we
passed
lost
away
Delaney
after
here.
we moved here.
Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I mean, I think those are the types of memories I try to.
But they stick with you.
They stick with you, but somehow you just like the old house, the one we had
Maddie
before.
passed.
Maddie
or-
passed, and my mom.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so. I mean, those are, I guess the low, and maybe those aren't low moments, but they're
They're not great.
no, they're not things you try to remember.
Yeah.
Maybe the worst moment here was the night the tree
Tree
hit the house.
with the ice storm because that day I remember at school it started to rain in the afternoon, like not
Right.
I'm like one-ish in the afternoon, and it was gotten cooler as the day went, and that water turned into ice, and that ice accumulated on these trees.
We had lost power at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, and stuff was starting all over the county. It was
Yeah.
just getting bad.
You had just gotten home, and
Yep.
now we were fully powered because we are powered by Blue Eddy, obviously.
Yes, you are.
And we have, for those of you who followed our channel, you know we have two Blue Eddies. We have the big blue that we like to call it was 2,000 watt hours, and then we had little
Little
red,
red.
and we also had our Honda generator.
Right.
And so I remember at about 8 o'clock is when the tree hit.
Man.
It was pitch dark out because it was February.
Yep. And the
But
house
we were watching
shook.
TV because we had, Blue Eddy power. And when that hit, you and I both jumped. The dogs jumped.
Uh-huh.
And I remember you looked at me and said, "Oh, my God, what was that?" And I said, "I know what that was." Like, I knew exactly what had happened. And so I ran over and, like a ding-dong, flipped on the light switch, but there's no power. So I couldn't see outside. So I grabbed a flashlight, opened the front door, and that's when I saw this tree
right there,
right over our gas grill,
Yep.
going up to the roof. And it literally hit that's how big these trees are back here. It was big enough that it hit the peak of our house, and then there was still other tree.
The top, like
part of it
snapped
and then fell down the other side of the house onto the ground.
Yep.
And so the next morning, we couldn't even get cars out because
well, even here in the canyon, we found out later there were so many trees down.
Well, when our contractor and tree service showed up, they had to cut their way into the canyon just to get to our house. It cost $4,000 to get that tree, one tree off the house.
Tree.
Yeah. And I remember the other thing was after that happened all night. I mean, I don't know how late.
It was terrifying.
But again, pitch black, but you would just hear snap, and then you'd wait, and then boom. Because most of the tree that hit our house did not break.
No.
It literally uprooted. And
don't we think that's because of the weight of the ice and the amount of rain? And then that June prior, we had a tornado
that had weakened them. And these trees aren't healthy to this day.
No, they're not.
And
they're real top-heavy trees.
So, I mean,
get wet.
Had this one just snapped, then probably it would never hit the house or done very little damage.
Right.
But because that one stayed, but all night long, it was just snap, boom, and you did not know where they were falling until, literally daylight, and you could look out and see the carnage.
An uneasy night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were not here for the tornado.
No, luckily.
But all of our neighbors who were here talked about how scary that night was.
Too. Yeah.
And we were spared in the tornado. We lost quite a few trees
out behind the house.
But nothing actually hit the house during that.
Right.
So I think those are some of the scary times in here, and but we've had over the 9 years we have had some amazing times in here. I mean, there's definitely way more good times than bad times.
Yeah, we've had fun just being here and hiking the trails that are here, riding our bikes around. Taking the dogs on walks, and the flower beds were always fun at first, but now they've kind of been more of a pain than fun. But yeah, they were fun to do because I like flowers. And then I learned early on that the deer ate all my flowers.
Yeah.
So
we have great wildlife here, but you couldn't have nice flowers.
No, or plants, because they don't even eat the weeds, but they'll eat your good plants. But yeah, it's been. We had set up a picnic table out back, and I remember painting a little sign, looked like a picnic area sign.
You made a lot of signs, like for the campfire area and different things. Yeah.
Site 135.
Where we parked our trailer.
Yeah. B, because our house is 135A.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we had some fun with making it cute, making the fire. One of the first things you made was a fire
big fire pit area, and that's so overgrown
and stuff fell in that area, and big trees, and
I would say early on we embraced living in the woods.
Oh yeah, we became woods people.
Yeah, I would come home that first year. I would come home from work and go out back and cut wood and split wood, and I loved like playing Mr. Lumberjack.
Yeah, because after I know when I broke my leg that we were talking about, when I was home and you were home with me. There was a day you ran into Kenfeld.
Yeah, because a tree had fallen in our driveway, and I did not own a chainsaw, and so I had ran into town to buy my first chainsaw.
And they helped you. They outfitted you with all this. I go, if you're gonna go get one, get all the safety stuff. Ear covers, the chaps, and everything to protect you. So you did, and then you were out there with our neighbor Don having a ball.
I got to tell you, some of my best memories are with
You and
Don,
Don
Don and
Ty.
Debbie, and Don would come out and help me, like if there were dead trees,
Yeah.
and oh my gosh, we had him and I just had a
You
good
guys
time.
thought you were Paul Bunyan or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
I remember one day you said Don and I were out back. Don was showing me how to cut down trees,
Debbie
and
and I are standing
and
there.
Debbie walked over and said, "What is going on?" And you said, "Well, Don is showing Patrick how to cut trees." And I
She
think
goes, "Good Lord."
yeah,
She's like, "I'm glad I brought my phone for 911." I said,
yeah.
"Okay, that's
But
what we're
Don
dealing
Don
with."
was great, and he really helped me learn kind of how to upkeep. That first summer, things got really overgrown here because we
We
didn't
just didn't know
know.
how it would look.
Yeah, and so after that, I ended up going to Harbor Freight and buying one of those like backpack
You look
weed
like
sprayers.
Ghostbusters.
And so I typically will spray every
Yep.
spring and every fall, and that helps keep the weeds down so that
Well,
you can actually see the wildlife and
yeah,
the lake
and
and
Dawn had told us like you got because we were like, well, if you want to be able to see the wildlife, you got to get some of those weeds going. Because in the spring we did, once you did that, we could see the baby deer and the turkeys, and
yeah.
sometimes we saw a fox back here once coming through. You always have possum and raccoons and
I think we've seen 3 snakes in 9 years, which
ah,
yeah,
yeah,
that was all.
yep.
Thank goodness we've had
Oh, and one thing that we never heard at the other house, we hear here, and it's really eerie, is the coyote.
the coyotes, and when they get a kill, you know
Oh,
it.
you know
Yeah,
it. So you'll hear it off in the distance. So in the summer and fall, but yeah.
right.
hmm
So
Yeah,
yeah, it's been a great
it's
house.
been a
I
great
mean,
ride.
I will say this: when we moved in, I think we probably both thought this might be our forever home.
Yeah,
Um, in the words of Phil Collins, something happened on the way to heaven.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong, we still have a very fond place in our
Right.
hearts for this. I think between the tornado and the ice storm, and especially the tree hitting
It
the
just
house,
blew it.
I think we both felt defeated. I
hmm
feel that way to this day.
Well,
In terms of out back, there are so many
it
trees
was
still down out
so
back,
overwhelming,
and
the mess.
you know, I don't know how you clean up the back. I think you just leave it natural like we've done and let nature take its course. I think you would either have to
Well, you'd need to have some
heavy
large
equipment,
equipment to
yeah.
get back in there
And you're talking big bucks.
because some of them were still like hooked and snagged and they would flip and
Some of them are just
spin.
dangerous.
Yeah, that's what they
hung
told
up
us.
and yeah.
Yeah. And
So
I think that kind of blew it. We were in love with it, and then when that happened, you weren't in love with it
right.
anymore.
So even if we weren't making this major change in our
And we
life,
probably still would be
we would
doing
still probably be selling and just looking for
something.
something not in the trees.
Right.
I think we both still have a little PTSD in terms of that tree that I'm constantly looking up, going, when's the next tree going to fall
Well, and
and
just
where?
like the other night, we had a wind advisory
Yep.
with wind gusts over 40 miles an hour, and I'm thinking, oh, great. I better get, my mind always go, okay, we got plenty of water. Do I need to go get my shower? I need to do all this stuff because we lose power back here like easy.
Yeah.
And I was shocked we didn't, but I was like, okay, when's the tree going to fall again? It's always like, ah.
Speaking of losing power, maybe one of the most interesting times was after the ice storm. So, if I remember right, the ice storm occurred on Wednesday.
Yes, you're right.
So, we did not have power until Sunday
Sunday,
afternoon.
about 1 o'clock.
So,
in the
we're
afternoon.
talking Thursday, Friday, Saturday, no power, which means no running water because we're on a well. And I remember Chandra. We have Jake of State Farm.
Yeah.
That's what I always say. Chandra is our Jake.
She's amazing.
We have the best State Farm agent you could possibly have.
So
In fact,
sweet,
I remember I
caring.
called State Farm
Yep.
that morning and said, hey, we're going to need to make a claim. And, they were great in her office. But I remember I think they had just gotten the tree off the house, and here comes an SUV up our driveway,
Yeah.
and it's Chandra.
Yeah.
And understand, her office is 45 minutes away or more.
She wanted to see.
And I
what
go,
was
Chandra,
going
what are you
on.
doing here? And she says, I came to check on you.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, dang, Jake just showed up, but I remember she wanted to move us to like a hotel
Right.
because we didn't have power. And I said, no,
Yeah.
we didn't want to leave because of the dogs, finding a hotel that takes dogs. And even if we did, And so she said, what, I said, well, the KOA has pet-friendly cabins, and she offered us that. And I said, no, we're fine, we're fine. And so she's like, I at least want you to start saving all your receipts from your meals. And I said, because I'm one of those people, I try not to run up a big bill.
Right.
And so she was insistent that we get some good food.
Yeah, we did.
And I said, so can we go to Caruso's and have dinner? And she said, yeah, you can have Caruso's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Save the receipts because, it's not your fault that you have no power.
Right.
But I remember on Sunday morning thinking, if this power doesn't come off today,
it was getting
we got to go
tiresome.
someplace, because if you remember, I was outside collecting snow and boiling it.
You were
Do you
just
remember
having
that?
fun with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm gonna get more water.
Yeah, because I was finding, because to
But you
flush
don't-
the toilet.
But you forget how much debris is in the snow
Oh my
around
gosh!
here.
I remember because after I got it all melted, it took forever to melt it on
'Cause
the
there's
gas grill.
pine needles and
And,
twigs.
yeah, then I had to filter it, and all I was trying to do was make water for the toilet so that we could use the toilet. And so there was some good times. So you have to admit.
Well, and you got the school had been
And-
closed, but that Friday it was open,
Yeah.
and there was a delay. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have to go to school with no shower,
And here's the thing: we had no heat
no heat.
because the furnace requires electricity, even though it runs off of propane.
So we were using the fireplace. And just snuggle time.
Yeah, and remember I was
Grab a
constantly
dog.
I was shuttling Blue Eddies in and out of here.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Blue Eddies would run out of power, and so when one would run out, I would take it outside and charge it using the gas powered generator.
Because we were
And-
trying to keep the freezer food from
Yeah,
not
and
going bad in
Yeah.
the fridge, and and then finally I remember that Friday after school I'm like, we have no power. I have to go get a shower because was a new.
Oh, that's right.
truck
I forgot. You went to Love's,
Yeah, went to Love's.
walked in like a truck driver, and got
Uh-huh.
yourself a shower.
That was the best shower ever.
I remember sitting in the truck thinking she is going to kill me. And you came out with the biggest smile on your face. You're like, these are not
Nice
like
shower. They
you-
were beautiful.
Yeah, you were like,
clean.
Did you
I
end
was
up going
happy.
back a second time?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It was so nice.
Yeah. So, see,
love
good things
shower.
come out.
I was like, I'm going in. I'm tired of being stanky.
Right. So, all right. Well, we probably should wrap this
We
up.
should wrap it up.
But we just thought, you know what? It's our final episode recording here in Tall Pine Lodge.
Yeah.
And, someday we'll look back and we're going to miss this place. I know we will miss it. But what you said something the other day. You said, I love the cabin, but I'm not. What did you say?
I love the cabin, but I'm not in love with the cabin
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. And I think when we moved in, we were in love with the cabin. And now we got to a point where it was like, we still love it, but
I'm not in love.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and we're excited. We're excited about the future. And, for good things to happen or, you have to try new things.
Well, and change. It's just evolution. You change.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've lived here the
Evolve.
longest of any house we've ever owned.
Yeah.
And 9 years is a pretty good run. And,
Yep.
So, yeah, we'll see. But,
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for watching these or listening on your favorite audio
Bless your
platform.
heart.
Yeah. And, over the next few weeks, I think we'll be able to keep up our podcast schedule. We've been lacking a little bit on the Travels with Delaney YouTube channel just because there's so much going on. It's hard to make good videos.
Plus it's winter.
But if we ever miss a week on our podcast, just know we'll be right back. It just means things got hectic, and so we'll be in the. By the time this airs, we will be in the fifth wheel.
Yep.
That will be our new home.
Right.
And yeah,
And moving on.
moving on. So,
on.
all right, and a huge shout out as always to our good friend and producer, Mr. Jim Kuzman,
Mr. Jim.
who I think kind of inspires you and me to keep doing this. If it wasn't for all the listeners and if it wasn't for Jim
Yeah.
putting in all the extra effort to make it
Right.
great, I don't know that it would be worth it. I've had people say to me, do you make a lot of money off your podcast? We make $0 off of our podcast. Honestly, it would be the easiest thing to let go of
Yep.
from that standpoint because, your time is valuable
Sure,
and it does
sure.
take time, not only for us, but for poor Jim.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it might be the most rewarding thing you and I do. I know for you enjoy this more
Oh,
than
yeah.
than the
I'm good at jibber jabber.
yeah, and so And I think, seeing all the positive comments on the
yeah.
YouTube podcast
Well,
channel.
and all of our families
I
here.
know. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why we keep doing it.
That's why.
Love you guys. Love Jim. And all right. Till next time, everybody. We'll see you.
On down the road.
Bye.
Travels with Delaney. We'll see you on down the road.